This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini, and we have some true stories for you tonight that are so good you couldn't make them up. We begin with Major James Capers Jr. He was the first African-American Marine to receive a battlefield commission as a member of a top-secret Special Forces unit in Vietnam. He was the first Black Marine used on a recruitment poster. He has more accolades than we have time to name, and he is a hero. Major Capers sought out Buzz Sawyers to tell his story, and the result is his book entitled Faith Through the Storm. So how did this all come about, Buzz?
I had written a previous book and had used a retired FBI agent as a consultant. And he had served under Major Capers when he was in the Marines. And he had contacted me and said, I've got this guy that I used to serve under. He wants to write a book about himself and he needs some help. So that's how it all came about, and just kind of being at the right place at the right time. Major Capers, he established a lot of new precedents in the Marines. He's African American. He was the first African American to be commissioned an officer when he was serving in Vietnam. He was in Special Forces. He was the first African American officer used in a recruitment poster for the Marines in 1978, and he was nominated for the Medal of Honor. And when he was in Vietnam, he was part of a Special Forces unit. In a year's time, they conducted over 60 missions, and a lot of them were covert actions, and they weren't even revealed until 2006 when his nomination for the Medal of Honor came up, and they had to go in and declassify all this information. They were called the Lost Patrol is what they were named, because no one was aware of all the things that he had accomplished.
With those accomplishments, I'm sure came a lot of difficulty.
Definitely. I mean, he's dealt with PTSD ever since he returned. He was wounded on his last mission. He and his patrol were ambushed. Everybody was wounded. He received over 19 wounds when he was there. He was in rehab for over a year from his injuries from that. So, dealing with that. And then in the early 2000s, his son passed away. And then his wife passed away a few years after that. So, and he's constantly kept in touch with all of the men that he served with. They have reunions every year. And, unfortunately, the gathering is getting smaller and smaller. Jim's 82 years old. So he's losing a lot of people around him.
Well, he was born to a family of sharecroppers and escaped in the dead of night to avoid Jim Crow laws.
So born in the 30s, his family, they were sharecroppers in South Carolina and did have family that was in Baltimore, Maryland. But the reason they ended up leaving was because his father had said something to a white woman in town. And his dad left to go to Baltimore because there was a warrant out for him. And it was a while before they could save the money to leave themselves. And Jim said it was part of an underground that got them there. They left in the middle of the night and were transferred from place to place by people that were taking care of them to get them back to family in Baltimore.
I don't think people today can even wrap their head around that and how difficult it was.
No, they can't. They have no idea, know. And, Jim has always said, I am not a Black Marine. I'm a Marine. And with everything that Jim dealt with, he was always above the racism that was there. He never used it as a crutch. He never used it as an excuse. He didn't want to have anything to do with it. And he had a long career after Vietnam. Part of his thing was education and whites and blacks working together and talking to the African American Marines and telling them, don't use this as a crutch to try to get ahead or as an excuse not to succeed.
That's a powerful message. Now, is he able to do book signings? Are you guys together?
Oh, yeah. He lives in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and I live in Rowlett, Texas, a little town outside of Dallas. So we get together. It's going to really be a big year for us because we're going to be doing a lot of the veteran conventions, and we've already done some book signings, and I do some here. He does some there at Fort Lejeune. And so we're planning a Texas tour next spring. So we've got a lot of big plans. So, yeah, he just got back from New York and Washington, D.C. doing a promotion. I mean, he's a Marine. He just keeps going, and he outlasts me, and he's 82 years old.
Oh, good for him. Good for both of you.
It's exciting, and actually, Jim has been writing on this thing for 40 years, and we've been working on it for 5 years. This wasn't something that we just threw together. He wanted it to be about his life, not just about Vietnam. He wanted it to cover his entire life, so that's what we did.
Oh,
But
good.
it's a great story, and it's very inspirational.
And you're a lucky guy. You got to write it.
I'm I'm a very lucky guy. Yes, I am.
All right. Thank you so much. Everybody's got a story for Anne Marie Hancock ever since they read her book entitled You Can't Drive Your Car to Your Own Funeral. It's about her mom, an extremely strong woman who operated without a filter and challenged everyone from her kids to her doctors. Anne writes about caring for her mom 24/7 toward the end of her life and how that experience taught her love, patience, kindness, and understanding. Anne Marie.
My mom probably offended everybody on this planet she could for a long, 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 long time. The book is really not about mom. It's about everybody that has to deal with a difficult human being, though they love them. And that's all of us, right?
Was she malicious or was she just snarky?
She was in total denial about her cancer diagnosis, never said the word cancer, kept saying she was going to see a chiropractor in the spring, though the cancer had gone to her brain, cracked her spine, and took half of the side of her head. My husband and I were her sole caretakers, and my dad had died 2 years before. She was lonely, she was frightened, she was scared. I would occasionally take books over there and you need to lighten up and watch Archie Bunker. If I'm not reading that stuff, take it home. And mom loved her car. So the car is very symbolic. Her license plate was perfect. PRRFCT. So we're driving across town. She goes through two major intersections and doesn't stop at red lights. I'm trying to think how I can diplomatically approach this because obviously I didn't have a crash helmet. And she goes, "What's the matter with you?" I said, "Mama, I think we went through a couple lights." "No big deal. Your dad did it all the time." This was mom. As I said, she was very self contained. She didn't want to talk about spirituality. I had a priest call her that's very close to the family one night. And he said, "What do you want me to say to her?" I said, "Just be you and give her an opportunity to say whatever she wants to say." So father calls me back in 5 minutes and I said, "Did you talk to her?" He said, "I called." She said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Eileen, how are you?" She said, "I'm good as always. What are you up to?" He said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Oh my God, Father, she just got out of the hospital and had the side of her face removed." He said, "Well, she didn't mention it. And she said she was busy. She was watching Archie Bunker." And she hung up. This was my mom. What I'm trying to say is I learned patience. And through it all, with a lot of prayer, I learned to circumvent insults, going to the door to hear, "Ah, it's you again. I hope you don't have that chicken salad." And I'd say, "Yeah, it's me, and I'm afraid it is chicken salad, Mom. May I come in?" But I learned to move around it. Learned to move through it. I learned to see her as the innocent child that all of us are at one point in our lives, frightened, scared, lonely, and for Mom, never quite able to express her spirituality, her feelings, her thoughts. My sister and I chatted after she passed, and I can remember Betty saying, "I don't even know what her favorite color was." She said, "Anne, the only thing I know is that she loved that car." And I can remember saying to Betty, I said, "Has it ever occurred to you that in that car, when Mom could drive, she was free?"
Oh, That's a beautiful tribute to your mom, Anne Marie. Thank you. Edward Henry is an adventurous guy, and his book, Gnome's Polar Princess, takes us to Nome, Alaska and the Arctic Circle, and through his torrid love affair with a woman he could never call his own. Edward, what's it like there?
Well, you would think that it would be really cold, and it probably was, but after a while, it was just something you layer up for. And I do recall one time where it was 10 or 15 below. The next week it was 4 or 5 degrees, and I only had a T-shirt on. So it was just a little bit weird, when it's really, really cold, and then when it comes up above the below line, it's not that bad. So I enjoyed my time. The people and the work there, they were fantastic. I enjoyed my time there. I truly did. They're 20 years behind as far as building and things of that nature. I'm an electrician, so I did find one thing that was different, and that was that they use LED lights there in abundance. And at the time that I went there, we didn't even in California, turn to LED lighting. So,
and you fell in love there.
Yeah, fell in love with the woman that was taken already. And the story is she was really lonely, and her husband wasn't going to make the time to come up and stay, and because he had his own career to think about, and her loneliness got the best of her and us, because it was an amazing, fantastical time for me, as well as her, I believe.
And you went on a 6-month adventure.
Yeah. We were like peas and carrots. We couldn't be separated, and people were starting to take notice, and she was having a problem with that. Because in the Arctic region, the companies of Alaska close for the Christmas time frame, as well as for Iditarod. So she had a lot of vacation time built up and was able to go back to her house in the Midwest with her husband, and as well as taking time with me.
So she fell in love with you.
I would have to say so. I mean, she didn't use the love word very often, but when she did, it was special for me. She was bipolar, so I don't think she really wanted to throw that word out unless she really meant it. And towards the end, she was sad that I was leaving.
Her husband finds out that you guys are having an affair, right?
Yes. He takes as many steps as he possibly can from as far away as he was to limit our tryst, as you would call it. But every time he would call, I was there, so it was different. It was weird. But I got to say, I felt so bad because towards the end there, he was doing so much diligent work to keep her from me, and it just wasn't working. And because I could hear him yelling at her on the phone, he would say things like, "How come you and him are like you and me used to be?" And it wore on me after a while. And when the end of the school year came, she was going to go back to the Midwest, and she wasn't going to be able to come back for the next school year. So it made it easy for me to leave.
She wasn't willing to leave her husband.
That's what it looks like, because I had discussions with doctors and anybody that would listen about somebody that was bipolar. And what it boils down to is that while she was there with me, the doctor said that I was her security blanket, much as her husband is when he's there with her. So it kind of put it all into perspective for me.
And you decided to write about it to kind of get it out of your system?
It was my catharsis, from what I'm being told. Basically worked sporadically over the next 3 years on the novel. And then, while it was being edited, I had a nightmare of 2 gentlemen were talking about how they thought it was such a good book and going to have to find somebody to write a screenplay for it. And I woke up right then and there and said, there isn't going to be anybody writing the screenplay to my novel. So for the next 18 months, I wrote a 312-page screenplay for the novel.
Oh, geez, Edward. You know what? I got to say, I would pay to see that movie, but I'm just so sorry for all the heartbreak there. I guess it's just a lesson learned. Anyway, we have to take a quick break, but we are coming right back. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you: printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
We're back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. LJ Sykes has dedicated her life to taking care of her disabled son. At the same time, she's worked on a number of projects to motivate people having money problems and other difficulties. She ended up writing a guidebook. It is entitled Seek Ye First. You did some very interesting projects, LJ.
For example, some of the projects that I worked on was extreme couponing. I decided to try that out, and that helped me out a great deal.
What is that?
Extreme couponing?
Yeah.
That is when you collect coupons and you match them up with the sales and you save a great deal of money. I got the idea from a show called Extreme Couponing. I also have a concept on paying rent before time. My philosophy is don't wait till the first to pay it. Most rent is due on the first. And I believe that if you pay it before time, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks before time, that way if something should come up, emergency should come up, if something should go wrong, you're not late. You're not running around trying to figure out how you're going to pay the rent from the 1st to the 5th because the rent is already paid.
Okay, give me another one.
Saving change. But it was a project I started a while ago. When I would cash my check, I would get a roll of nickels and just put it in a jar. The next time I would go to the bank, I'd get a roll of dimes and put that in the jar. The next time I'd go to cash my check, I'd get a roll of quarters and put that in the jar. And then by the time I filled up the jar, it wouldn't take long because every time I went to cash my check, I would get a roll of something. Maybe 2 rolls of nickels the next time, 2 rolls of dimes the next time, and so forth and so forth. And before long, I would have saved up a whole jar of change and take it right to the bank and cash it in.
Okay, so these are all of these little helpful hints that you've gathered over the years.
Yes.
And now you're sharing them with the world.
Yes.
What do you think is the most helpful tip you have for us?
Paying the rent before time.
Fair enough. So let me ask you this. Are you sharing these tips?
Yes. I hold meet and greets to promote my book. I set up maybe a month or 2 in advance, and I invite people out to these small gatherings to promote my book and to tell them about it and to tell them about my ideals.
Why the title Seek Ye First?
Oh, because it's the start of a scripture. Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all other things will be added. I also infused a lot of my Bible studies with a daily devotional guide to get motivated by the Word of God. The whole idea is to put God first. That's the whole idea behind Seek Ye First, is to put God first.
Well, thanks so much for those tips, LJ. Dr. Siddiqui Che Baye isn't one to sugarcoat anything. He believes it's time to tell the truth and not worry about what other people think, and explains it all in his book entitled Raw Food for Thought.
Okay, the truth of life is that we are group-oriented people by nature, but for some reason we have become individuals. The average person today is trying to prove that I don't need anybody. I can do it myself. And my thing is that we didn't get here by ourselves, so we're not going to make it by ourselves. You know, it took a team to get us here, and it's going to take a team to take us further. And the team is the group. And since we are group-oriented by nature, then we have to prepare our individual selves for the team, to be a team player. Raw food for thought is getting us back in line, getting our balance back to know that we are group-oriented people by nature and we need each other more than ever before. And everything starts at home. And I'm not talking so much about a building home, I'm talking about the home of your mind. Everything starts in your mind because everything is mental. And so therefore, that's why they say you have to be careful what you pray for, because it comes in a package. But are you ready for the package? Do you have enough to deal with the unexpecteds? And sometimes we operate too much on emotions instead of on what you know. We are spiritual by nature. We know that life originated in Africa. And so therefore, the original people had to be spiritual people. but something happened and flipped us upside down, and now we became more physical. And when you're more physical, that means that you are more emotional. And when you are more emotional, then you vibe on what you feel instead of what you know. So we have to start knowing more so that we can be more clear on our purpose. And since everything requires a process, most people are not process people. They feel when I pray, I should get what I pray for immediately. But we have to know that everything in life took a process. Even if you're not right today, if your balance is not right today, it took a process to get you off balance. So it's going to take a process to get us back in balance. And the process comes through each other because the energy has picked up and we can't go the same speed no more. We have to step it up. So we can't dilute the truth anymore. We can't be overly concerned about how people feel. And if you look at history, the messengers and the prophets and all of them were hated in their own town because they were telling the truth. And sometimes the truth can be painful. But we have to understand that it can be painful. But understand that if you're feeling pain, that you need to check out what you're paining about. You know, I have 4 pearls of life in my book, and that was given to our ancestors and the elders from the Creator, and I was inspired by that. I've never seen it, but it was in my mind, in my conscious. And see, when you're clear-minded, when you're about life's journey, and you are dedicated and committed, then the universal force will give you knowledge and inspiration that you never had before. And it was 4 pearls of life that I was blessed with. And the first pearl was to keep your lights on and keep them bright at all times. And some people are so obvious with their nonsense, you don't need no lights, but keep them on anyway because they can create illusions. Sometimes we give certain people with titles a free pass to do and say what they want. But we have to be careful with those people because they can prevent you from progressing, especially if you care for these people. The second one is stay strong and keep your faith where it belongs. Life is about the survival of the most fit. The more fit you are, the better chance you have to be here and make a significant difference. The third one is do your best and let God do the rest. In other words, you got to know when to hold and know when to fold. You have to have a sharp discerning spirit to know the difference so you won't be using emotions. You'll be using what you know. Last but not least, keep your head towards the universe where all strength come from. And never give up and never, ever, ever give in, no matter how things seem. Because everything is, always was, and always will be in divine order. God don't make no mistakes, but we do. But when you learn from your mistakes, it's all good. So keep on growing and keep on learning. You can't go wrong. But guess what? Learning can be painful. So you have to understand the process so when the pain comes, you won't give up and give in. You know that's part of the process. But if you get through the pain, you can't beat the blessings.
All right, Dr. Baye, thanks for the inspiration. Finally, we've all heard stories of people who've earned lots of money and squandered it all or lived miserable lives. Well, this is what Kenny Stroop's book is all about. It's entitled A 5-Letter Word Called Money.
Basically, the book is pertaining to poor people, your middle class people, and your wealthy people. And so what I did, I took that word and used it in different examples of how it could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing, regardless of who they are or where they come from. Or, you know, money can take it in a good way. It can take it in a level to where it can ruin your life.
Well, why?
So I've had a lot of different experiences with all kinds of people from all over different directions and walks of life. You know, I got that in me. I try to reach out to people if they mess up or if they do well. I try to support and try to be there for a person when they do fall. I try to, you know, maybe help them get them back on a route to where they can be able to realize that life's not over. You know, I've experienced with people that's lost houses, to lost vehicles, to lost, like I said, a lot of cash, to where they feel like their life was over. And then, you know, I try to look at it and say it's not over because you can still pick yourself back up as long as you're breathing, that you still have opportunities in life to where, your best people in life that's failed and also struggled to get to where the level they're at. They had to go through hard knocks usually. Most cases, you see the people that you hear about the stories of being successful, that they have failed or have fallen where they've lost everything. This book is not how you can make money, how you can invest in money. It's, again, about stories that people have been, again, of a poor person that's been influential to me, of more or less, again, reaching out, maybe giving their last dollar to you. But then you got this certain person that's got money a lot of times where they have reached out to a person and gave out to where they're trying to help somebody again. And to me, a person that's wealthy, a lot of times in life, they can reach out to a lot of people with money, but they don't have to because they wanted to get it the same way that they got it, is get out here and work hard and to be able to pursue what they need to do in their life to make some other self. Again, I just laid it out the way it came to me as I started writing it, of the stories of different people has touched my life. And to be able to know that it's not all about celebrity people, it's about everyday people, it's about middle-class people where they are important too, as well as anybody that's on TV or a movie star maybe, or a country music singer, or of a sports person, whatever. People in the eyes of God are important. That's the way I look at it. I had an uncle that reached out to all kinds of people. No matter what he went through in this life, he tried to make the best of it. He's the type of person that would make people laugh every day of his life because that was his nature.
Okay.
Again.
So are you promoting your book? That's the question.
Yes, I am. Different libraries in the area where I'm at, I've been doing that. I've got one coming up pretty soon with Jerry Lawler, the wrestler, down in Memphis. It's a Jerry Lawler restaurant.
Nice work on the promotion, Kenny. Keep it up. And that's another edition of the Page Publishing Book Club in the bag, on the record, in your ears. Thanks for stopping by. And if you missed anything, you know where to go for the podcast. 710WOR.com. If you've got questions, comments, or anything at all you'd like to share, you can find me at info@pagepublishing.com. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Here's hoping your story becomes our story. See you next time.